Welcome. You've found your way into a quiet corner of the past. Somewhere soft and silent, and as you rest, I'll be here, weaving you a long, delicate thread of stories old, peculiar, and oddly comforting. Let your thoughts settle, your breathing slow, not through wars or empires, but through the quieter lanes of antiquity. We'll pause and explore the forgotten jobs, the almost unthinkable professions that once filled the days and sometimes nights of people who lived long, long ago. Tonight, we're going to take a slow journey to clay tablets and curious rituals where jobs could be both mundane and mystic. These weren't the famous rulers or warriors etched into stone, but also of peculiar public offices, the silent technicians, the curious tradesmen and women whose roles might make us blink or smile or simply wonder. They stitched together the rhythm of daily life in ways we can barely imagine today. And as you listen, you may find that their oddness feels strangely soothing, where oddity met bureaucracy in the most unexpected places, where strangeness intertwined with wisdom, ritual, and a deep sense of duty. There will be 5 such segments in our time together tonight. First, peering into dark temple corridors and cool riverbanks to uncover some of the awed-assed rolls by the Nile. Then we'll wander eastward to Mesopotamia. Next, to ancient Greece, land of philosophers, into ancient China and India. Let the outside world slip away. The past is quiet here. Let's begin with Egypt, the rhythm of labor along the Nile. Close your eyes and imagine this, the sky, pale and cloudless, stretching far above the low sweep of land. The horizon is quiet, punctuated only by the distant shape of a palm tree, its fronds waving lazily in the warm early breeze. And there, winding like a slow thought through the very heart of the land, is the Nile. The Nile is not in a rush. It never is. Along its banks, there is no noise here, no hum of machines, no shrillness of urgency. Only the gentle rhythm of a civilization that breathes in time with its river. Its waters glide, smooth and silent, reflecting a sun not yet harsh. This is ancient Egypt. Not the Egypt of Hollywood, no golden masks, not yet. This is the softer Egypt, the one that stretches across millennia of mornings, the Egypt of baskets and barley, of linen robes and quiet temples, an Egypt that lives not in monuments, but in movement. Imagine yourself standing on the edge of a small village, not far from the river. Their surfaces, their edges are softened by time. Their doorways open to the wind. A courtyard bakes slowly beneath the sun. They move in slow procession, their rhythm matched to the light. There are no clocks here, only the sun and the shadows it casts. Goats doze in the shade. Their bellies, the homes are built of sun-baked mud brick. The baker bakes her bread all as part of the great circle. A woman hums as she kneads the dough, her voice low and unhurried. A child runs by, feet slapping the packed earth, a carved wooden toy dragging behind him on a string. A rooster lifts its wing, then tucks them in again. You can smell crushed coriander and flatbread baking over coals. each one tethered to duty, family, gods, and earth. The fields are alive with labor. Men bend over rows of young flax. This is not a land of idleness, but neither is it one of relentless pace. Work is constant. There is a patience to it. In this Egypt, everything is guided by Mat, the sacred order of things. Mat is not just law or truth. It is balance. It is the stillness at the center of all motion. Pharaoh rules, yes, but only as long as he maintains Mat. The priest offers his incense. The farmer tills his soil. Even the animals have their roles. The ibis, sacred to Thoth. The cat, beloved of Bastet. The crocodile, terrible and divine, honored in his own right. And within this balanced world, 1,000 jobs emerge, each one shaped by generations. But not all of these jobs are familiar to us. Not all are easily understood. Yes, there are the farmers, predictable as the Nile's rise. Yes, the priests. But look beyond. Look toward the spaces in between the great and the ordinary, and you'll find something strange. Jobs that seem bizarre today, even a little surreal. Jobs that raise questions. Why this role? Who thought to make it so? You may be tempted to laugh, but instead, warming the backs of men who carry baskets of river clay, let their strangeness soothe you. Let it soften your curiosity into calm wonder. You'll find the woman hired not to cook or clean but to cry, to wail beside the dead, with precision, between mud brick walls, past a well where women draw water, past doorways where elders sit, watching the day unfold. ULL. Find a man whose whole life is spent tending to a single bull believed to be a god in flesh, a keeper of breath, of muscle, of divine digestion. Another who spends his days crushing resin and lotus petals in mortar, carved from obsidian, a perfumer not for beauty, but for prayer, for ceremony, for death, for dreams. These are the people we'll meet, not generals or poets. And so, now that we've arrived, let us settle into this land, with its pale skies and slower time. Let us observe the daily rhythm that pulses gently beneath even the strangest professions. The sun is a little higher now. Children are gathering dates from beneath a tree. A temple bell rings in the distance. Not loud, just persistent. Let your imagination move down a narrow path. Now, beyond a low gate, you see a courtyard shaded by woven mats. Mourners gather nearby, and from a side doorway, their hair is unbound. Their robes are clean, but their feet are dusty from the walk, and they begin to cry, not loudly, not wildly, with method. They are the professional mourners. We will return to them in a moment. We will observe the rhythm of their strange, sorrowful craft. But for now, simply breathe. Feel the warmth of the sun on your shoulders. Hear the flutter of pigeon wings, where everything moves slowly, and every life has its place. The professional mourner. The courtyard is silent, save for the hush of sandals on swept earth, the soft murmur of linen against skin, and the occasional thud of pottery being gently set down beneath a fig tree, still glistening from the morning's watering. The light has changed, now no longer the gold of dawn, but a fuller, warmer white, pouring down in sheets across the smooth plaster walls, shimmering faintly as it touches polished stone. It was not only the priests who were summoned, nor only the embalmers and the coffin makers, but as if guided by memory, their hair falls forward. They beat their chests once, then again. Each movement is choreographed, not in the moment, but from years of study, not in temples, perhaps, but in practice, in imitation, in rehearsal. They learn the lamentations by heart. They memorize the names of gods and the rhythm of ritual. They study the timing, how long to cry, how loudly to wail when the coffin is lifted and taken toward the necropolis. Their sorrow is a discipline of watching, of listening to others who came before, and though they move on from one funeral to the next, with the same slow grace, they are not dismissed as frauds. They are not seen as mercenaries of sadness. You walk away quietly, without thanks, without recognition. You vanish again into the slow churn of time. They are keepers of form. They serve mat, order, balance, the very thread that ties the world together. Their role is essential. Without their mourning, the ceremony feels incomplete. Without their sound, the spirit may feel alone. The mourning women were called. Their presence was a signal that the soul of the dead would not walk alone. Wrapping yourself in white, flickering across the base of an incense bowl, they do not speak aloud. Instead, they begin with a sound low and almost musical, more breath than voice, who first mourned the death of Osiris. Their cries pierced the world of the living and echoed into the next, giving voice to a grief so divine it carried with it the seeds of resurrection. And so, these women, their cries are not their own. There are echoes, embodiments, of those who mourned before the world had structure. Through the way your cries helped carry the soul across the river of judgment, through the tears you summoned in others, and the space you held for the sacred silence that always follows the final note, like the first note of a flute warming in the sun. Songs that speak of the sun setting into shadow, of the journey of the soul upon the bark of Ra, of fields, of reeds, and lakes of fire, of judgment before Osiris, and the weighing of the heart. Their lament is a litany, but of his humanity's breath, his labor, his children. It grows slowly, becoming a chant, a cry, a lament, a sound so full of pain that it loops back upon itself and becomes comfort. Here, beneath a thin canopy stretched between the mud brick pillars, a man lies, wrapped in white. His body is still, tightly bound in clean linen. It becomes a vessel for what the family cannot yet express, for what words might fail to hold. The mourners give structure to sorrow. They protect the soul in its moment of passage. Just as midwives cradle the newborn at the edge of light, their tears are not born of love, but they are professional mourners, and anointed with oils prepared in secret by hands trained in both science and prayer. A ceremonial amulet rests upon his chest, a scarab, a symbol of rebirth, of the soul's long passage through the hidden world beneath this one. Around him stands his family still, reverent, not loud in grief, not collapsed in sorrow, but paused. Two women, walking slowly, deliberately, each step measured and without haste. as though they are already halfway inside the veil that separates the world of the living from that of the dead. Their heads are bare, their hair long, dark, and loose, falling over shoulders in ribbons like the river when it splits around an island. Their faces are marked not with makeup. Their robes are simple, but their presence is commanding, as if they carry a story that has no beginning and no end, waiting, watching, not for a priest, not for the but for someone else. And just beyond the courtyard arch, these are not wives, or sisters, or daughters of the man in linen. To mourn was not a private affair in ancient Egypt. It was not a hidden sorrow whispered behind closed doors, or pressed into a pillow in solitude. Mourning was sacred performance, a ritual act that tied the soul of the dead to the journey that awaited them beyond this life. Without it, the path could twist, could falter. The spiritual double, the essence of a person might lose its way in the do-it, the vast and unknowable realm of the afterlife. And so, when death arrived in a household, they kneel now, in tandem, opposite each other at the head and feet of the body. They do not glance at the family. They raise their arms together, in time not jerking or theatrical. In mythology, it was Isis and the sister goddesses, and though the family knows these women are strangers, there is no discomfort. These women train for years, and though they are paid, imagine being such a woman. Imagine waking before the sun. You do not ask questions. You do not knock. You are expected. You begin your work, not in words. You channel grief not through memory. And when the burial ends, there are no statues for you. You do not enter history through heroism. And yet, you are remembered indirectly through the peace your voice brought. Let your mind rest now in that silence, not an empty silence, a silence thick with reverence, with the slow drifting of incense through a shaded courtyard, with the faint rustle of linen in a still, dry breeze, with the echo of a voice that cried for someone else, then moved on. These were the professional mourners, but artisans of grief, women whose job, as strange as it seems, was to bring sacred structure, to weave mourning into the fabric of ritual, to remind the living of what must be let go, and to guide the dead toward the place. We'll leave them now. Their song continues for a while, but we do not need to follow it. Let it echo softly behind us, as we turn our thoughts toward another corner of this world, a job no less strange, but one directed not at the dead, but at those creatures who lived ahead in a sun-drenched temple, nestled between a row of columns carved with lotus and falcon. It is alive, sacred, and someone quite strange, is waiting to feed it. The keeper of sacred animals, and now the cries of the mourners grow distant, softening into the dry hum of the wind as it winds through narrow alleyways, their smoke rising like thin ribbons into the brightening sky. We follow the light, and toward the sacred heart of the city, toward the temple complex, where stone and silence meet in ritual rhythm. The scent shifts here, but to beasts of flesh and bone who ate. But to the Egyptians, animals were not merely symbols or pets. They were avatars, living vessels, embodiments of gods who walked the earth in tangible form, from dust and bread to oil and incense, thick and sweet, lingering in the still air like memory, but to the breath of the beast slow, steady, resonant, like the drumbeat of creation. The grains were measured with precision. The water was offered in basins of polished bronze. The enclosure was swept daily, bedding changed often, and when the creature walked ceremonial, it was the keeper who walked beside him, speaking softly, offering dates from a carved dish, guiding the steps of a god. Its appetite, its sleeping posture, a twitch of the flank, sleek and scaled, sunning itself on warm stone, tended by priests and assistants who risked their limbs daily, not for money, not for spectacle, but for duty. Priests performed rites. The people grieved, something almost monastic. The body was embalmed and laid in a tomb prepared long in advance, a sarcophagus, taller than a man, heavier than a chariot. The keeper, too, mourned, but his grief was of a different kind, not just for the creature, but for the end of a daily rhythm. The crocodile, too, would one day be mummified. Another cycle would begin, but the first one was gone. And in his memory lingered the scent of warm hay, the weight of ritual bowls, the silent steps through dawn-shadowed corridors. The keeper would begin again. Let the image of the sacred bull calm in his cool stone chamber, blur gently in your mind's eye. But some thread in the weave of his days would always be changed, laid to rest in a linen wrap, its snout curled beneath a golden ornament. It was believed that in this creature, as in all others kept by the temples, the divine touched the earth directly with breath and claw and presence. The keeper did not simply care for the bull's health. We, too. Step back softly. He read the bull's behavior like a scroll, like a message from the gods written not in ink, but in muscle and sound. Columns toward the workshop of someone whose tools are jars and herbs, whose prayers rise not in voice, but in vapor. Each one carved with symbols too old to question and too sacred to touch. And the keeper's life moved in tandem and changing. There was no fame in the role, only sacred repetition. Other creatures were held in reverence, but from creature, fed and honored by priestesses and caretakers alike. When a temple cat died, wrapped in linen, adorned with amulets, and interred in tiny sarcophagi shaped like its living form, to harm a cat, and someone many, playing with them, reading their movements, for signs of the goddess's will, the creature is fed at precisely the same hour each day. It is not just a live-it, and the person who feeds it, watches over it, interprets its moods, and ensures its comfort, is not a priest, nor is he simply a keeper. They do not just hold up stone, they hold up time. They cast long shadows across courtyards, worn smooth by centuries of sandals. Within these temple walls, every sound is subdued. Footsteps become whispers, voices become breath. Believed to be the physical manifestation of Pater, and later Osiris himself. This was no ordinary bull. He was chosen from birth, spotted by specific markings, raised in seclusion, and presented to the priests in a ceremony of such solemnity that even Pharaoh would attend. Once chosen, the bull became divine, and as with all divinity, he required service. And inside one of these shadows, tucked within a cool, shaded alcove, behind a screen of reeds, he is something in between. He is the keeper of the sacred animal. To us, it may seem odd, perhaps even surreal, that a civilization could offer reverence not only to deities invisible and vast. The most famous of these was the Appius bull, kept in a temple in Memphis. That service fell to the keeper. Imagine, if you will, the stillness of such a life. Not a farmer, not a soldier, but a caretaker. He woke each day. The bull could live for years, but it was not only bulls. In temples to the goddess Bastet, imagine, his hands bear no calluses from plows, no ink stains from script. Instead, they are careful, steady, trained, impatience. His eyes are used to watching for subtle shifts, the curl of a tail. He speaks little. He learns silence. He must, for animals reveal themselves not to noise, but to stillness. What happens when the sacred animal dies? When the Appius bull passed away, the temple fell into formal mourning. A new bull would eventually be chosen. There is something beautiful in the strangeness of this job. A man who spoke more to animals than people, who lived in the quiet space between devotion and distance, who witnessed gods not as statues or visions, but as breathing creatures that needed to be fed, cleaned, soothed. This was his role. Not loud, not powerful, but necessary. A hidden hinge in the door between worlds. Now, as the sun slips past its peak and shadows return to the temple floor, let the sound of rustling papyrus and distant chanting fade. Our next steps lead elsewhere through corridors, less sacred. We'll move toward the scent of oils and crushed blossoms. The air grows thicker with scent. A new figure waits, deep within the stone chambers, with mortar in hand and a secret recipe upon his tongue. He is the perfumer, is divine, the perfumer priest. The air changes once more, and you feel it before you smell. It's a subtle thickening, though quiet and contained within the stone walls of sanctuary, lit only by the flicker of oil lamps resting in shallow niches along the sandstone walls. There is no breeze here. The air stands still, not unpleasantly so, but can imagine with care and patience, Kiffy, but with the dignity of stillness and intentional, sacred pause, fermented not for pleasure, but to draw out a softness that will bind the mixture. Then honey, sticky and golden, frankincense and myrrh, follow, ground into a fine powder, each grain glinting like the dust of stars. He adds juniper and cinnamon and spikenard, each chosen not just for fragrance, but for spiritual properties. And through each step, he not aloud, necessarily, but in rhythm, each motion paired with silent words. Kiffy was used to honor the gods, and the torches are dimmed. It is the perfumer's offering that remains, the scent drifting up through the columns, wrapping around carved gods and painted walls, curling into corners where no light reaches, touching places where no voice speaks, purifies spaces, sometimes weeks. That too light incense was not to please the nose, but to nourish the invisible world, where every scent might be a bridge between worlds. The ingredients are prepared separately, aged, blended. He is a feeder of spirits, a maker of memory. Another world waits one, filled with omens, rituals, tablets, and time. His tomb may not bear long inscriptions, but perhaps, in the air near his resting place, it clings to your robe, it stays in your hair, outside. The sun is setting. The wind has shifted. The stars begin to blink open. Somewhere a bull lies in stillness. A cat stretches beside a brazier. There lingers a trace of something sweet, something aged and comforting, an echo of a life spent in silent service to the unseen, then kneaded into pellets or left, too steep into a thick syrup that can be dried and later burned. Share a home with other temple servants, or reside in a small chamber near the workshop. He eats alone. His hands are stained not with ink or earth, but with oils, his fingerprints. He speaks little, for his work is not in language, but in transformation. He measures time not in days or months, but in batches, one mixture completed, another beginning. His season is the cycle of scent, and through it he speaks to gods, to calm the chaos of the day. Nor you ease the mind into sleep, and cleanse the soul before its journey into the afterlife. He prepares oils for anointing statues of the god statues, not merely symbolic, but inhabited. It was believed by divine essence during ritual. The oil must be exact. If too strong, it disrespects the god. If too weak, it fails to invite. He knows which flowers bloom beneath the moon, which barks. The recipe varies through the centuries, sometimes as many as 40, but always crafted with intention. Shelves line the chamber, made of cedar or polished acacia, each one holding alabaster jars, ceramic flasks, tiny vials sealed with wax, and bowls covered carefully with thin cloth. Some are labeled with symbols too faded to read, others bound in twine, their contents known only to the one who prepares them, held a significance so immense that even the gods themselves were thought to respond directly to his craft. As though the very atmosphere becomes weightier, you breathe it in slowly. He is not a healer. He is not even simply a priest, though he serves in temples and follows rites. He is something else, entirely a craftsman of the ephemeral, a servant of invisible offerings, a mediator between matter and divinity through the portal of the senses, and with it comes something ancient and mysterious, a blend of honeyed resins and the faintest trace of something smoky and sweet. This is not the scent of the market. This is something rarer, older, and more precise. You are entering the domain of the perfumer-priester figure whose job. Picture the chamber now. A room carved deep within a temple, far from the sunlight, and there, bent over a low table of dark stone, is the perfumer, not hunched in labor. His fingers move delicately. His pestle moves, not in haste, but in rhythm, following a tempo learned not from instinct but from tradition past, down from master to apprentice, over many seasons. He is not a merchant. His most sacred recipe is one the listener may never smell. The word itself carries weight, one of the oldest and most complex perfumes recorded in the ancient world. Not a simple scent, but a ceremonial tool. To make kifi, the process takes days, but the perfumer does not simply make kifi, only process, only attention. Each day is a repetition, with variation blending, boiling, storing. The scents rise into the air like music, too faint to be heard. Some said the gods could not be reached without scent, that without it, prayer fell flat, failed to rise, was incomplete. Nor you, the perfumer. Then, and what of the man himself? He owns little. When he dies, he may not be buried with great treasure. Now, imagine this. You are walking through the temple, past its final chamber, and beneath it all, the scent remains. An offering, a ritual. The work of one strange man, whose bizarre job was never bizarre at all, not here. In this place where every breath might be sacred. Let that thought settle. Let it linger with you. The perfumer's chamber fades. But there are more strange paths ahead, far to the east, where rivers cradle the first cities carved in clay. Let us walk now, slowly, gently, to Mesopotamia, where jobs were strange, not for their form, where diviners read the future from entrails, and scribes, inscribed curses in the dark, will arrive in the city of yours soon, but not too soon. Take your time. Between the rivers, a world etched in clay, let the sands of Egypt slip gently from your mind now. Let the echo of incense fade. The stone temples grow smaller behind you, until they are distant outlines in the heat haze of memory. We move eastward. The Nile flattens behind us, and the land swells forward into a plain hemmed by two mighty rivers, broad and brown and restless. This is Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers, between the Tigris and the Euphrates, a place not defined by stone, but by clay. Imagine it under your feet, now cracked and warm, pale where the sun has scorched it. The air smells of dust and baked reeds, but also of something old and organic, like parchment left in the sun. A bitter trace of bitumen from buildings sealed against time. This is not a place of grand facades or pyramids shining in light. Here, the cities rise, low and dense, layered like old manuscripts, one built atop another, and another, and another. Still, their bricks are made of mud, mixed with straw, shaped in wooden molds. No stone is wasted here. Even the temples, vast and important, are built of the same earth only, higher, heavier, more enduring. Now, listen. A chorus of sounds lifts into the morning haze, the rhythmic patter of feet along narrow alleys, the creak of a wooden cart, children calling out to one another in a language of vowels and harsh consonants, Akkadian or Sumerian, or something now lost, and over it all, measuring, counting, commanding, believing, tap, 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 tap. It is the heartbeat of Mesopotamia, because they are often so serious in their strangeness. For here, shaped by the hands of hundreds of gods, each with their quirks, their tempers, their cravings, not carved in stone or painted in color, but pressed delicately into tablets of earth, tablets that dry in the sun and lasts for centuries. And with this writing comes a world of recording. Jobs are different here, not less strange but stranger. Perhaps the Mesopotamians believed in a universe balanced delicately between order and chaos, and to survive in such a world, one needed specialists. Its light is sharp at midday, but filtered now, early in the morning, by the slatted shade of woven awnings stretched above merchant stalls. The ziggurat looms at the city's core, tiered like a stairway to the sky, its bricks softened by dust, its summit barely visible against the blue, perhaps with its streets shaped like veins through a sleeping body, warm underfoot and restless under the surface. And someone had to interpret those signs carefully, and if possible, in a smaller courtyard shaded by tamarisk trees, a man sits cross-legged on a stool. He holds a shallow dish in one hand, and in the other, something red. But readers of entrails, the market is waking. Figs are being laid on wide reed mats. Sheep led to their pens. Walkers of long distances, every decision, be it planting, marriage, war, or trade, could be brought before the gods. But the gods, silent and hidden, spoke through signs. And so arose a set of jobs like no others. Let's step into the heart of a Mesopotamian city. You pass a bakery and the center flatbread, and just past the edge of this daily bustle, it is a liver, still warm. He is not a butcher, he is a barua diviner of omens. We'll come to him in a moment, but for now, it is quieter than Egypt, in a way not. Because there is less noise. Gods who may not forgive, fates etched into stars and reflected in blood. This is a place where work means more than survival. Knowing whether a king will die, knowing how many birds flew north yesterday, and how many of them carried a god's discontent in their wings, and so the jobs here are strange. Not for their absurdity, but for their intimacy with the unknown. Let the warmth of the Mesopotamian sun settle across your shoulders. Let the air heavy with memory. We are going to sit with this baru now. We are going to watch his hands move over that warm organ. We are going to listen as he whispers meanings that no one else dares to speak aloud. The liver holds a message, and he is ready to read it. The Herospex. In the filtered light of a courtyard, around him, the walls are bare, save for a clay tablet embedded high near the doorframe. Its wedge-shaped marks, fixed forever. In the same patient language, the gods are thought to understand. Before him lies the organy glistening. But this is no butcher's kill, no idle dissection. This is ceremony. This is consultation. This is inquiry addressed to the hidden world that lives just beneath the one we touch. They asked them into blood, into clay. Not the heart, not the mind. It was thought to be where thought and soul and breath resided. Where the invisible touched visible, with incense, with words, its surface glinting in the light. He observes the size, the texture, the sacred markings, variations, scars, discolorations. They are words. And because the gods had shaped man from clay and blood, deliver this deep, hidden part of a beast was seen as a miniature map of the universe itself, indicating a favorable omen for travel, or perhaps Gib2 EPNs. The organ becomes a tablet, the signs a sentence, whether a marriage is blessed, or doomed emerges, like dawn from shadow. Every major decision, whether to marry, to travel, to go to war, to build a new canal or dig a grave, was offered to the unseen world, and the response came not in thunder, nor in dreams, but in the folds and textures of a liver, he is a baru, a practitioner of one of the most quietly strange and sacred professions in the ancient world. And what is heard in the rustle of palm leaves, and what is felt in the tension of a hand resting on stone? He is the reader of the gods' replies. Here, in Mesopotamia, thousands of years ago, people did not ask questions into silence. But in interpretation, you see, he was part astronomer, part theologian, part surgeon, part poet, and wholly an interpreter of the sacred. Imagine his days. He rises with the sun, with the names of various sectors etched into the surface, like a topographical map of the heavens. He eats sparingly bread and figs, perhaps dipped in honey water. He bathes, often twice. Purity is crucial. He studies wooden models of animal livers, perhaps a jar of oil to anoint the organ and preserve its clarity. His tools were few, his silence was immense. These models serve as reference. But the real work begins with the real organ. The lamb is chosen with care, pure, unblemished, handled with respect. Its life is not taken cruelly, it is offered, and once the body is still and the organ removed, the baru begins. He turns the liver slowly in the dish. Stand beneath a sky spangled with stars too ancient to name. To him it is a script, written in flesh. He sees sin shipwreck, the path is taken. You might imagine this to be guesswork. He has studied more than the body. He knows the whispers of the god's Enlil. He knows that what is seen in the liver must be weighed against what is seen in the sky. He does not make prophecy alone. He listens and gathers. And the strange part is not that people trusted him. It's that they depended on him. A military campaign would not begin until a baru had offered his answer. A king might delay his coronation. A farmer might redig a canal, not because the earth demanded it, but because the organ of a lamb suggested misalignment. The power of the baru lay not in command. He was a servant of signs, a whisperer of truth hidden in tissue. And yet, for all this importance, he was often alone. His chamber was barren earthen bench, a basin for washing. The lives of hundreds might hinge on the tilt of a lobe. Yet the baru remained calm. He had to. His work was not to please, nor to fear. And when he was finished, just the answer, or burned, and he washed his hands. And the decision was made. There is a strange peace in this rhythm, a job so rooted in mystery, no spectacle, only a body, perhaps late at night. After his final reading, the baru would step outside his dwelling, but for quiet, for the comfort that someone and someone else, just as quietly, would listen for answers in unexpected places. Now let your thoughts slow. Let the image of the baru fade the clay courtyard, the sacred quiet softening. For there are other strange scribes here in Mesopotamia, men who wrote curses instead of blessings, who etched vengeance into tablets instead of laws. We'll visit them next, but for now, let the silence speak. Let the rhythm of this place, of this job, carry you gently forward. The cursed tablet maker, scribbling wrath into clay now, drift with me a little deeper into the shadows of the ancient city, not into its markets or temples or bustling courtyards, but into the quieter lanes, crooked spaces between houses where the sun does not reach. There is a smaller chamber half, storage, half study, a single opening near the roof, lets in a wedge of dusty light. He does not wave wands. He writes, shaped into a flat rectangle or oval, soft enough to be worked with a reed stylus, but firm enough to hold the marks until drying. May his sons fail in their labor. The repetition is deliberate. Sometimes a lock of hair is pressed into the clay, or the footprint of a sandal, a name etched once or 3 times. Numbers believed to bind, names inverted, twisted, or written backward. The style varies, but the intention does not. To direct misfortune, each clause reinforces the last, a layered call for imbalance, for disfavor, for disruption. May his tongue swell. It must not split, for a broken curse is a useless one. Once hardened, the tablet is hidden, not displayed, not read aloud, but buried. The scribe moistens his fingers, runs them along the edges to smooth them. His movements are slow, even meditative, from every walk of life, not just merchants and farmers, but even temple scribes. Anyone who felt unseen by the mechanisms of justice, unheard in the noise of public life, came here, to a small room, with a small request, whispered in the dusk. That is all. The cursed tablet maker never promised results. He only wrote. The gods would decide, or time to carry it where it must go. Others are buried at crossroads, or dropped into wells, eats, alone, the name unreadable, the room empty, the scribe's hand still. Each time he buries the name of a stranger beneath packed soil or seals it inside the broken wall of a shrine. He performs a ritual not of violence, but of redirection, channeling pain, resentment, fear, a messenger who does not speak, so we do not disturb it. A man who carries fragile clay through harsh landscapes, bringing word from king to king, from city to city, across distances that demand endurance, not of strength, but of silence and balance, into something tangible, something finished, something that can be buried and forgotten, or not, keeps no family close, for fear of retaliation or suspicion. His shelves hold blank tablets, bits of charred wood, used styluses, fragments of old amulets. Sometimes he receives offerings from clients, not just payment, but charms, herbs, incense, meant to sweeten the gods or speed the curse. He accepts these, or placed within temple walls by complicit attendants who offer no comment. Some were found hundreds of years later, in jars, their words still clear, their grievances long forgotten. But the power of what he writes, at least in the minds of his clients, is no less real than fire or rain. Enough to see the shelves, and the door closed, there is silence again. Someone wronged in business, perhaps, comes to him under cover of night. A stolen goat, not in Akkadian, the language of trade and diplomacy, not in Sumerian, the language of liturgy, but often in a dialect only the gods are thought to understand, or in a muddled blend of words designed to obscure, to make the text no courts, just a quiet request. A name is given, and with these words the work begins. You can smell the faint musk of baked earth, dried reeds, ink, and oil. This is a scribe's place, but not just any scribe. This is the room of someone whose task is secretive, meticulous, and profoundly strange. And where the air is still and heavy with old breath, these alleyways are not always mapped. Down such a passage, beyond a row of doors without markings, here, at a low wooden table, bent over a moist square of fine, pale clay, sits a curse, tablet maker and inscriber of misfortune. Nor you, he takes commissions. The curse tablet itself is simple in form, just a hand-sized piece of clay with a fine stylus carved from red or bone. He begins to write. He writes, "May the god of storms strike the houses. Naram Sin, may his fields dry and his livestock wander." There is a rhythm to it, not poetic, but repetitive. Sometimes the tablet contains symbols, abstract marks, small drawings of bound figures, or signs denoting disease, drought, confusion. Once finished, the tablet is dried not in the sun, but in shade, slowly, to prevent cracking. Some are placed beneath thresholds where, but why? So concerned with the favor of gods and the balance of law permit such things? Because the gods were not just beings of justice. They were also enforcers of personal justice. What could not be addressed through law could be addressed through appeal to the divine, and sometimes these appeals took the form of curses. There was, of course, risk. If the gods judged your curse unjust, if you asked for punishment where none was deserved, they might turn the curse against you. This was part of the unspoken understanding, and yet the clients came. To be a curse writer, you were neither priest, your hands did not steal, they recorded, your voice did not shout, it transcribed. And what of the man himself? He lives modestly, and each time he writes, there is something strangely serene in this work. Each mark deliberate. And when the tablet is done, and the stylus wiped clean, the clay cools, the ink dries, the gods wait, and the curse sleeps in the earth, quiet and still, waiting for wind or rain. Let your thoughts settle here for a moment. Let the image of the tablet fade, the symbols now blurred. Our journey through Mesopotamia is not yet done. There is one more strange profession to visit, one less mystical, perhaps, but no less curious, a runner of sorts. We'll walk with him next, but not too fast. Let's pause first. Let's breathe. Let the dust settle. The cursed tablet has been buried, and we must walk lightly now, bearer of fragile words. Now, let your thoughts drift again away from shaded rooms and buried curses, and into the open, into the space where cities fade and the earth becomes horizon. The smells of sesame oil and scorched barley fade into the warmth of wind. Before you lies the open plain broad. They are not marked on any map. They do not need to be. No weapon, no banner, no flute to sing the journey. Instead, it is wrapped in reeds. Inside, you will not find treasure, nor food, nor offering. They are carved into memory, into muscle. The sounds of yore grow softer behind you. The lowing of oxen, the murmur of scribes, the hammer of potters shaping their kilns. Upon one of these paths walks a man, not quickly, not slowly, but with intention, is a clay tablet, etched with cuneiform, baked, fragile, precious, and deeply important job. He is a mud brick, Carrera, humble name for a quiet, dangerous, sometimes in sheep's wool, sometimes in strips of soaked leather. Sometimes he places it inside a small baked enveloper, clay casing with seals etched upon it, bearing the marks of the scribe or sender. These envelopes are not opened until the recipient receives them. To break the seal is to bear witness, but he carries something just as heavy in responsibility and just as vulnerable in form. Written communication, preserved on hardened earth. His job is not to interpret. He does not carry bricks in the literal sense. You see, in Mesopotamia, too, write was to give something permanence. There are no carts, no chariots, held close to his chest. Those are for merchants and nobles. He checks the bundle gently, carefully, without haste, still safe. His job stretches across time and space. Like thread, he wraps it again. The courier moves on foot, across dusty plains, along canal banks, over dried floodplains, through orchards of dates and fields of onions. He sleeps beside irrigation ditches, eats lentils from a pouch, drinks carefully from wells where frogs rest on mossy stone. But to send what was written required trust not in the gods. It might be a royal decree, a land contract, a letter from one priest to another, across the land, or a shipment invoice. The contents vary. The clerk will inspect the seal, nod, crack the clay envelope with a small obsidian blade, and begin to read. The courier does not wait to hear it. Figures fading into heat and dust. He is already turning, already beginning the journey back. His task is simple in design, but complex in execution. To deliver messages carved into clay from one city to another. The path he walks is long, sometimes 2 days, sometimes 10. The message he carries may be no larger than his hand, but it weighs on him. Some are wrapped in cloth that disintegrates at the lightest touch. Others bear seals, never broken. They are messages never received, for if it breaks, if it falls into the wrong hands, if it is lost, no one will remember what it said. To protect his bundle, he wraps it not once, but many times. The courier is not allowed to read what he carries. He does not ask. He does not speculate. There is a kind of dignity in that. He carries knowledge without needing to understand it. He walks with words, not his own. The light turns the plain to copper. He sits under a tamarisk tree, unwrapping a small flatbread filled with garlic and lentils. He eats slowly. He listens to the frogs. Tomorrow he will reach the city gates of Nippo. They will see the seal on the bundle and let him pass. No pause. He will find the scribal office, bow slightly, hand over the tablet. Sometimes he carries 2 messages, one to deliver, one to return, a question and an answer, a command and a report. His feet know the way. His breath stays steady. His eyes remain low. He does not speak often. He does not rush, for haste brings error. He does not boast, for his work is invisible. But still, without him, kings would wait in silence. Markets would falter, prayers would go unanswered, accounts would remain unsettled, And while scribes and priests and generals are remembered in stone, the couriers remain unnamed shadows on a path. But they were there, always walking, always watching the skies for rain, always testing the weight of silence. Even now, archaeologists find tablets tucked in layers of earth, the corners smoothed, the characters still sharp. Perhaps those couriers did not make it. Perhaps the city fell before they arrived. Perhaps they buried the tablets in fear or reverence. Perhaps they simply sat down beneath a tree. Let that image rest in your mind. A man beneath the stars, beside a flickering fire, clutching a message he does not read, the wind warm on his face, the sky unchanged for thousands of years, the words safe for now. And with that, we close the chapter of Mesopotamia. We have read livers, buried curses, walked long paths with fragile truth. We have seen a world not of spectacle, but of precision, where mystery is handled with care and silence is filled with meaning. But now, we must cross the sea. Aegean winds call us westward, to a land of democracy and drama, and strange officials chased the indifferent with ropes. We are going to Greece, but not just yet. Rest a moment longer. Feel the ground cool beneath you. Let the sun fall a little further, and history waits. The agora and the rope, odd jobs in the cradle of democracy. Let us leave the plains now. Let us lift softly from the dust-dappled footpaths, where silence pressed against clay walls and shadows carried the weight of whispered omens. Let us turn west, not the hero-s, Greece of labyrinths and monsters and battles shouted across the sea, but the lived Greece, across the dry shimmer of the Levant, across a sea too blue to name, toward a land where the sun spills across white stone in quiet, calculated geometry, and where strangeness does not hide in shadow, designed not by the divine, but walks calmly into the public square, with laundry drying across alleys. Are the functionaries the quiet gears of Athenian bureaucracy? They are not soldiers nor priests, but they hold power, and with the distinct smell of warmed earth and white dust. The Acropolis rises ahead, not yet crowded, emphatic gestures, as they compare notes on taxes, foreign policy, the grain supply, the newest play to be performed. It was democracy. It was shaped by it. Names were drawn, officials selected, positions filled, some mundane, some bizarre, some so specific. So, not as a soldier only, or a taxpayer. They stand under shaded by worn stone columns, sipping watered wine and debating with a seriousness reserved elsewhere for battles or prayers, but watching, always watching. Its long stones catching the sun in soft bursts, not the myth, the grease of sandals on marble steps, of olives crushed under stone wheels. Children imitate them badly, their questions trailing behind like kites without strings. Birds nest in temple eaves, dogs doze in sunlit corners. But because someone had to make sure the ephebs were properly oiled, trained, and behaving like future citizens, a stoic mumbling to himself in tight circles, a fishmonger asleep against a pillar, and all around life happens with reason, with dialogue, with just enough eccentricity to feel strangely modern. Of arguments carried on the wind, it is morning in Athens, not the first morning of myth. You walk now through narrow streets paved with flat stones, where cats rest beneath clay pots, and the scent of grilled fish drifts from behind a woven curtain. Every home here opens inward small courtyards, but the city itself opens outward, and it pulls you forward, always forward, toward its heart. You arrive in the Agoratha open space, the breathing core of the polis. It is not a market only. It is a stage for everything commerce, conversation. Here men gather in clusters talking, not loudly, and here too, among the philosophers and merchants, some record, some measure, some vote, some chase. We'll come to them later. But for now, let us take in the peculiar energy of a city that made civic duty a kind of religion. Athens did not simply have democracy. Every man, at least every citizen, every day. Jobs, nor you, and the man with the red robe, an enforcer of civic participation, who walked not with a sword. The rhythm here is different than in Egypt or Mesopotamia. It is not slower, but it is no more rushed. It is measured in steps from the council chamber, measured in votes cast with pottery shards, measured in the shadows of sundials and the distance of oratory. This is a city where you can be punished for not showing up to vote, where a playwright can be exiled for writing the wrong joke, where an official may spend his entire day watching boys wrestle in the gymnasium, not out of perversion. It is a place where reason reigns, but reason, when left to its own devices. Let us walk now slowly across the square. The marble is warm beneath your sandals. You pass a parter arguing with a tax clerk, and just beyond the council steps, a man is setting up a table. Inside are small potsherds, pieces of broken ceramic. He is preparing for an ostracism, a strange ritual of democratic exile, performed not with passion, but with paperwork. We will watch him work in a moment. This is not the Athens of parades. This is the Athens of official boredom, of roles so specific, so regulated, that they become almost hypnotic in their purpose. You are safe here, surrounded by sandals and reason, and the faint scent of honey and brine. Let's watch now, as strange jobs unfold in the cradle of reason. Let's watch the mechanics of democracy, tired, dusty, endlessly inventive. We begin not with a crown, but with a shard, and a vote not to celebrate, but to forget. The ostraca pharaohs, exiled by shard, You hear it before you see it. A soft rattle, rhythmic and dry, the sound of broken pottery shifting in a shallow wooden box. Not loud, not rushed. Just the sound of dozens, hundreds of clay fragments. His fingers stained with the red-brown hue of terracotta dust. He lifts each shard carefully, inspects it for cracks, and then he sets it down again. A small act, repeated, clinking gently against one another. The man behind the table does not look remarkable. He is one of the Astrocophora, the officials of ostracism, facilitators of a ritual, as strange as it is, methodical. His job is not to speak. Imagine now what ostracism meant here in Athens. Not just social rejection, of one man gathering too much weight, too much loyalty, not necessarily a tyrant to present, too powerful, too known, but formal, legal exile. You see, and debate in near daily, right there remained the lingering fear of one voice becoming too strong. So, once each year, the city would ask itself a simple question. Shall we exile someone? And the vote would not name names. It would only open the door. A decision to hold an Ostracophoria vote to choose whether someone must go. And if enough citizens agreed, if not a slave or foreigner approaching the table with his own stylus, perhaps he copies a name whispered to him by someone else. A day when names would be written, but on broken bits of pottery. The man at the table readies them now. He takes each potsherd, old, reused, discarded, and arranges them in piles. He makes sure there are enough, sometimes over 6,000, each one blank, each one waiting. They queue in the open. He writes a name. Perhaps he hesitates, who reads the same name again and again until it blurs and into clay. The Ostracophoros takes the shard and places it into a basket, saying nothing. The voter moves on. No speech. No speech. No other way than this. No defense, just a name. Once all are collected, the counting begins. 10,000 shards may sit on that table, and the man who counts them, who sorts them, and if one name appears 6,000 times or more, then that man is ostracized. No trial, no charges, 10 years of exile. No property taken, no family harmed, no dishonor declared, and perhaps that's the strangest part. The ostracism was not revenge. Strange spelling. It was not punishment, in the usual sense. It was prevention, a pressure valve for democracy. No need to kill the rising star. A few survive, scattered beneath layers of soil, waiting centuries to be found. Their names still visible, their etchings crude, their edges chipped by time, but not erased. Just send him away. Let the balance restore itself. Let the city breathe again. The Ostracophoros watches the names pile up. He sets aside, duplicates. He reads carefully aloud sometimes. For clarity, he must interpret bad writing. Imagine the weight of this work. But historical, he is a librarian of exile. And when it is done, and the man who is named, not in protest, he simply gathers his things and walks out of the city into a countryside still watching. Many return, some do not, and the city continues quieter now, like a room after someone has left. The pharaohs return to their other duties. The table is folded, the baskets stacked, the shards swept. There is something both deeply democratic and quietly unsettling about this role, to exile someone with a whisper, to be the hand that receives, not the one that strikes. Let your thoughts rest now on the table of shards. The dust soft against your skin, the echo of names etched into silence. We'll walk next to another functionary of the city, not one who exiles, but one who watches. A man whose entire role was to oversee the bodies and behavior of the young men in training, among the oil jars, beside the marble columns, under the weight of culture and pride, and steps softly into the world of the Ephebis, so the future might stay in line. The guardian of the Ephebis, above the whitewashed walls of the agora, casting shadows that shrink gently beneath the eaves of the stoa and the columns of the temples, toward the gymnasia, the training grounds, the young men transitioning from boyhood into civic life, here, beneath the stone archways and cypress-shaded courtyards. Another kind of labor takes place. The voices in the square have quieted, not stilled entirely. The bustle fades behind us. As we move east, and someone must be watching, enter the guardian of the Ephebzar man whose role, while mundane in appearance, reveals something deep and defining about Athens itself. He is not a soldier. Not exactly. Not a tutor. Not a judge, though he passes quiet judgment daily, their hair curled or shaved according to fashion, their bodies halfway between softness and sinew. They carry nothing of wealth, nothing ornamental, for training is austere. Their sandals are plain, their chitons light. Most bring a flask of oil and a cloth, ready to strip and prepare for the morning's exercises. He is a supervisor of youth appointed, but for restraint, consistency, and a kind of silent you see, in Athens, the Ephebiatha state-sponsored training period for young male citizens, to break the line of conduct is not to risk injury alone. They must not boast. They must end around it. Is the guardian who determines if they are failing in this silent code. They sit beneath olive trees, squinting at wax tablets or listening to older citizens recite the customs of Athens. The guardian paces behind them, not with words, but with presence. On marshes, he follows behind, taking note of laggards, of whisperers, of the ones whose eyes drift too often to distraction. His ledger, if he keeps one, is private, but his opinions are felt. A nod of approval can change a reputation. A frown, quiet and brief, can cast a shadow over an entire season. A single cough for 2 years, but the boys know he is there. They feel his gaze as they grip and twist and breathe in time with their training. They know that if they mock another, he will note it. That if they give up too quickly, or preen, or sulk, he will remember. before the echo of sandals clatters across the polished gymnasium floor, dan their cloaks and walk into the city as full citizens. The guardian does not congratulate them. He does not join the feast. He stands aside, watching still. He walks the perimeter, inspects the wrestling ring for stones or puddles. His patience straightens the racks where javelins rest like rows of reeds. He arranges the daily schedule, physical drills, recitations, civic instruction. He ensures that the trainers to guide the young men through their paces. They learned rhetoric and recitation, but by its watchers, by the men who saw, who recorded, who corrected softly and expected nothing. Someone had to ensure that the future defenders of Athens did not disgrace themselves or the city before they even picked up their shields. But they were still boys, and, as with all boys, with their energy, pride, that someone stood at the edge of the courtyard. The guardian's days begin early before the ephebs, and then the boys arrive. They come laughing. He watches how they speak to one another, designed to shame the inattentive into doing their civic duty. He listens for arrogance, for insult, for boast. He notes who defers, who dominates. He memorizes names quickly, their habits more slowly. In the courtyard, imagine him now, standing in the shade. He does not call out. He is the keeper of Paddy Arthur. Education, not just of mind or body, but of soul. In the afternoons, he oversees the ephebs' reading of laws. His silence is not neglect. At meals he observes table manners, at temple rites. But there is something strangely beautiful in this job. He sees these young men in their most unguarded hours. He sees the tremor in their hands before a public speech, the clenched jaw before a javelin toss, the trembling smile after receiving praise for a well-reasoned answer in a mock trial. He sees their struggles not as failures, and yet he does not become their friend. He is not allowed to. His distance is part of his role. When the training ends, when the 2 years conclude, and the ephebs then, he begins again, a new group, a new set of names, the same rituals, the same quiet vigilance, no statues carved. He is not remembered in political speech. But Athens was shaped not only by its thinkers and warriors. Let that linger in your mind, the echo of sandals in the courtyard, the weight of unspoken expectations carried in a man's gaze. We'll turn now to one final job in this city of logic and law, perhaps the strangest yet. Not a watcher of youth, but a herder of adults, armed not with spear or law, but with a red rope dipped in pigment, dragged through the square. Yes, a job meant to gently force people to participate in democracy. Let us walk back to the agora, but take your time. Breathe slowly. The boys are training still, and the guardian is watching. The red rope bearers, gently forcing democracy. The agora draws you back, not suddenly, but in a slow, folding motion as if the city itself breathes you inward, as if its pale columns and quiet arcades hold out their arms. Past the tables of lentils, the bins of figs, the racks of sandals tied with strips of hide, the clay pots stacked by shape and season. The day has warmed. The hum of civic life grows again, not frantic, but pulsing. Men stand in groups, speaking not loudly, but endlessly debating grain tax policy, the conduct of Sparta, not bright, not vivid, but dull and sticky, or whether Sophocles' last play lacked the sting of his earlier works, you walk again beneath the awnings of stitched flax and hanging herbs, and just there beneath the portico of the Nix, where the assembly gathers, 3 men begin to stretch out a rope. It is not a rope for lifting or binding, woven of thick fibers, its edges stiff from repeated use, and it is dipped entirely, thoroughly in red paint, made from powdered cinnabar and vinegar. These men are not soldiers. They carry no swords, but citizens, Athenian men, who should be attending the ecclesia, the assembly, but who have instead chosen to linger in the shade, to sip watered wine. Their tunics are plain. They do not bark commands. They simply walk. And as they walk, past the gossiping potters and the idling philosophers, soaking into their sandals, marking the hem of their chiton, their path is deliberate, even ceremonial, and their target is not enemies. The law in Athens required citizens to take part in their democracy, not just to vote, but to attend, to listen, to show up. But not all did. Some feigned illness, some claimed business, and so the red rope bearers were sent to sweep the square with their rope not to tie. Anyone standing in the square when the rope passed would find themselves stained red dye streaking their legs. It was not painful, it was not violent, but it was shameful. To be marked meant to be seen as absent, clutching their scrolls, pretending they were already on their way, as inattentive as a citizen who had declined his duty. And that mark lingered. People saw it, they noticed, they whispered. Sometimes the dyed rote made contact with food stalls. A fig seller would curse under his breath as his claws were smeared. A fishmonger might lift a slab of cuttlefish to reveal a red-stained counter. It was more nuisance than punishment, but it worked. Because Athenians cared about appearances, they cared about honor, about citizenship, about not being the man in the corner with red ankles. The rope moved slowly, like a river parting the square. Those ahead of it scrambled toward the assembly. Those behind it, already marked, quickened their pace too, but with heads lowered, avoiding the gaze of those who had arrived clean. The red rope men made no threats. They did not follow or name or shame aloud. Their rope did the work. It was policy turned performance. Democracy made visible. Their job was strange, neither feared nor respected. They were civic middlemen, paid not for wisdom or strength, but for consistency, neutrality, and restraint. Their rope was cleaned each evening, the pigments reapplied weekly, its wooden handles wrapped in leather to prevent blisters. They did not issue verdicts. They issued reminders, a message in motion, a moving line of red that whispered, "You belong to something larger." It was a job that could only exist in a city like Athens, where duty was everything, where participation was sacred. Now let your thoughts rest on the image of the rope, heavy, stiff, tugged across the marble, like a brush against canvas, trailing color in a land of rules, drawing lines. The rope has passed. The square quiets again. Voices rise. Arguments begin. The machinery of democracy creaks into motion. And outside, the red rope bearers lean the coil against a wall. Tomorrow, or the next day, a strange job, and with that, we take our leave of grief. We have cast out the powerful with pottery shards. We have observed the young in their transformation. We have walked with rope. But now our steps turn heavier, more Roman. The roads stretch farther. The work grows filthier. The empire expands. And its strangest jobs, urine collectors, food tasters, men whose odd duties kept the marble shining and the emperor breathing. Let the square fade behind your eyelids. Let the sea wind return beneath the marble and the quiet bazaar in Rome now. The sea comes into view, again not. Pale, warm shallows of the Aegean, but something deeper, broader. It glints under a heavier sun, edged with the crisp lines of galleys and merchant ships bobbing against wooden piers, their sails pulled down like tired flags at the end of a long march. The coastline narrows, up hills, past orchards and aqueducts, past vineyards wrapped in morning mist and stone roads carved straight as laws. And then Rome, not Rome as it fell, not Rome at war, but Rome at work, a living, breathing city dense, layered, and filled to the brim with purpose. You might expect grandeur, and it is here. Columns so tall they brush the edge of sunlight, and marble mosaics, domes that echo with ambition, public baths steaming with scented oils, but that is only the surface. Beneath it, along its crooked alleyways, between pageantry and plumbing, a different Rome labours in the heat. Rome is a city that runs on systems on aqueducts. It is a city of balance between show and infrastructure. Live the strange. For every senator in silk, there is a man wading need in the sewer. For every marble monument washed clean at dawn, there is a woman who collected the ammoniated liquid. For every whispered banquet in a candlelit atrium, there is someone tasting each dish, first testing for poison. These are the quiet workers, but one with worn bricks and tall insulae, the necessary. The air smells of fresh bread and human life spice. Sweat, the faint sharpness of urine. Rome did not hide its dirty work, it structured it, gave it titles, duties, regulations. Even the strangest tasks found homes in the great bureaucratic machine. Let us step now into a street knot, a grand avenue. Shadows stretch from drying laundry hung across balconies. A boy races past, chasing a hoop with a stick. A merchant yells in the distance. A door slams, and just beneath your feet, the Cloaca Maxima flows, the great sewer of Rome, and yet someone must walk its tunnels, carry its filth, clear its clogs, chase its rats. Someone knows its every curve by torchlight, and somewhere in a nearby courtyard, amber liquid, stinging to the nose. He does not flinch. He carries it down the alley, but of chemical alchemy, recording blockage and overflow with careful notes on wax tablets. He is a urine collector. Yes, but also for criminals, for overflowing waste, for abandoned infants, for unrest, and his job is vital. But before we meet him, let's sit with this city for a while. Let's feel its rhythm. Rome wakes early. Its markets stir at first light. Public fountains splash with clear water from aqueducts carved into hills dozens of miles away. The mills begin their slow, grinding work. Bakers carry hot loaves on wooden paddles, calloused hands wrapped in linen. Children run errands. Waste moves too. Rome produces not only wealth, but residue, and its systems are designed to contain it. The pharaohs, the launderers, will open their doors, soon ready to wash the togas of senators and commoners, alike in mixtures, not of soap. The sewer inspectors will walk narrow tunnels by torchlight. The vigils, a kind of fire brigade, will patrol the city for flames. The pregustators will prepare to sample imperial meals, risking their lives in silence, to taste what emperors fear, but with the calm of a man who knows his value. All of these jobs are strange, but none of them are random. Each one is nested within a structure. You see, in Rome, even the bazaar is organized. That a city so full of ceremony and statue also relied on ammonia, on sulfur, on vermin control, and regulated blood. That its glory was not suspended in marble, but rooted in regulation. We will visit these jobs one by one, 4 in total, each strange in its own way, each performed with a kind of grim dignity, each woven quietly into the body of an empire that refused to fall. At least, let your thoughts settle now like dust on a tiled floor. Let the sounds of sandals and fountains and pigeons cooing in the arches blend into stillness. The first worker waits for us, just beyond the bathhouse. He nods. Let's collect the forgotten with care. The urine collector, liquid gold of the Roman streets. You hear it first, before you see him. A rhythm like water stirred with a slow ladle. Just measured motion in a clay pail, swinging lightly with each step. He walks without hurry, though the street around him is waking into its usual noise. Vendors unpacking wares with tired hands. Oxen snorting near the market gates. Bronze pans clanging gently as they're placed over early fires. He moves through it all like a shadow shaped by duty. At his side, not with wine, not with oil, but with something far more pungent, far more essential in the world of ancient Rome. Urine, not the waste of life, but its strange utility, collected, stored, sold, liquid, not for the wealthy to drink, but for the city to clean itself. This man is a urine collector, part tradesman, part scavenger, part civic fixture. He is neither glorified nor ridiculed. He exists like a hinge between what the city discards and what it requires. Let your mind rest on that paradox. The ancient Romans understood value in things we cast aside. Their empire was built on conquest, yes, but also on efficiency. Recycling was not a virtue. And in their laundries, the Fulanicisop, as we know it. So what did they use? Ammonia. And where did they find it? Urine. Not in theory. Picture him now, pausing near a stone basin. It is recessed into the wall. One of many public urinals that dot the poorer quarters of Rome, though you might not even notice them if you weren't looking. Simple half-barrels built into walls or alleys, curved to allow privacy, angled to drain into a jar beneath, mixed with the trace scent of wine. He swirls it slightly before sealing it again. He leans close, removes the wax seal from his amphora, and empties the contents of the collection basin. He does not flinch at the smell. He does not comment on the color. The people many, and each day brings a fresh supply. But a fully commercial operation. The urine has been sitting there overnight, warmed by the stones, a few coins for each jar. Enough to live on, not enough to boast. Then he moves to the next. He will visit 20 such stations today, perhaps more if the weather is warm. The city is large, and prepare the footbaths where garments will be submerged and trampled. Once his jars are full, he walks them to the Phalonica. Not a small tub in someone's house. Here, rows of togas hang like pale ghosts. He pays by volume, and in the back room of the workshop, his apprentices will mix this strange substance, ferment it, dilute it. Yes, trampled. For Roman laundry was performed by stomping garments with bare feet in shallow basins of ammoniated water, but effective. It is his work, anonymous, acrid, unnoticed. That allows the senator's robes to shine white and gleaming in the morning light. And the urine collector, he will return again tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. He knows the quiet satisfaction of utility. He knows that while the forum echoes with speeches and the temples fill with incense, his role is not remembered in scrolls. The smell of warm bread. He hums a little, not for joy, perhaps, but for rhythm. Every step, deliberate. He has no bust, but his jars, buried under rubble, have been found. Some still sealed, still pungent, still telling the story of a city that believed nothing was truly waste. Not if it could be used, not if it could serve. He walks again, passing behind a bakery. The irony, the Roman Emperor Vespasian, and in response, the emperor held out a coin and asked, "Does it smell?" "No," his son replied, "yet it comes from urine." And from that day, profitable, collected. So the next time you imagine Rome, not the idealized marble, but the real city, remember this man, his sandals damp, his tunic stained, his purpose unshakably clear. Not every strange job was glamorous, but every one had a place. Now let us leave this alley. Let the air clear behind us. Let the scent fade. Let the rhythm remain. Next, we will descend into darkness, where water echoes and stone walls sweat, where the empire flows through veins of brick and sewage, to the tunnels of the Cloaca Maxima. The next step is beneath the street. The sewer walkers, beneath Rome's foundations, step lightly now. The streets behind us are bright with sun, warm with commerce, loud with the gentle riot of Roman life. But here beneath it, all the sounds soften. The light fades into grey. We descend, slowly. A narrow stairway of damp stone curves. Beneath the forum, flickering gently, the air is cooler. Here not fresh, but steady, heavy, still. And here it is, the Cloaca Maxima, but also, in its own way, the great drain. It does not shimmer. It flows lowly, patiently, and endlessly beneath temples and homes, amphitheaters, and aqueducts. It carries with it the waste of 1,000,000 lives. And someone must walk here. Someone must inspect it. But without him, the city above would drown in its own making. Meet the sewer walker. No rank, no audience. Its waters swirl with ash, oil, fragments of food, hair, insects, and worse. But also, strangely, sometimes, with coins, with trinkets, with scraps of discarded jewelry swept up in careless moments. Only a leather tunic to shield from the damp, a long-handled rake, and a torch wrapped in waxed cloth. His role is neither honored nor feared. It is not spoken of in elegant poetry or civic speeches. Rome was brilliant, yes, that the tunnel narrows dangerously near the older sections of the Aventine. Its true brilliance in its ability to keep the invisible functioning. The Cloaca Maxima was constructed long before the empire reached its peak, say, as early as the 6th century BCE. Clears collapsed bricks, and sometimes, though not often, just procedure. It began as a canal to drain the marshes between Rome's hills and grew, over centuries, revealing graffiti carved into the tunnel walls by workers before him, crude drawings, names, etched into brick, into a sprawling tunnel system paved in stone and lined with arches strong enough to hold back the weight of an empire. It carries storm water, yes, but more than that, it carries runoff from bathhouses, drains from public latrines. He does not flinch at the smell. He does not curse the weight of the rake or the endless loop of his patrols. Feeling its weight, he focuses. He knows that debris collects near the bends in the tunnel. That runoff from the Palatine district brings thicker sediment. Each day, he walks a stretch assigned to him 10. He scrapes the slime from the sides. He checks the walls for cracks. He nudges loose, refuse toward the current torchlight. He's seen it many times before. Sometimes, a child's ball is swept into the system from an open gutter above. He finds it wedged between stones and lifts it. He sets it on the ledge for someone else to find. These tunnels are not silent. They hum with echoes. They carry the faint trickle of water, but when they do, it is low, respectful, and filled with shared understanding. A single nod might mean blockage ahead. Not clean, perhaps, but ritual. A flick of the torch might signal watch your step. The distant clatter of metal dropped above. Quiet men in robes, who never set foot below ground, but whose designs rely on his senses. The murmur of footsteps overhead, but deeper still, there is peace here, dark, hidden. The sewer walker carries a wax tablet, not to write poetry, he reports, nor melee. Wait. Oh. Wait. He records blockages. He notes odors. too strong to be normal signs of fermentation or decay that might indicate a deeper issue. His reports are passed to engineers. He works alone, but he is never truly alone. The tunnel is part of him. He senses when the current has slowed, when a section is unusually dry, when the brick underfoot sounds different. Sometimes he walks with another when inspections require pairs. They speak little. At the end of the shift, he washes his hands with water from a cistern. Its fountains sparkle. Its markets washed vegetables in cool water from underground sources, all without knowing the name of the man who walked in shadow to make it so. Let the thoughts settle that beneath every polished floor there is a river, beneath every temple, and beneath every elegant life. Strange, perhaps, but essential. Like roots beneath a flowering tree, we will leave him now. Torch dimming, steps fading, another tunnel behind him, one more added to a lifetime's quiet effort. Ahead, we'll climb again, to sunlight, to fine tables, to a very different kind of strangeness. For not all bizarre jobs were dirty. Some were luxurious. We will walk next. A man who dined with emperors, whose every bite might be his last. But for now, let the cloaca maxima flow beneath your thoughts. Let the torchlight, all is cared for, the food taster, and perfect composure. Warm beeswax and sandalwood, gone are the echoes of dripping sewers or the sharp scent of ammonia and stone. Now the sounds are hushed whispers. The brush of silk on mosaic tile, the faint hiss of oil lamps being trimmed. We are in a Domitian elite, Roman hausor, perhaps something even grander. The Palatium, high on the Palatine hill, the floor is a river of stone. Pale marble swirled with veins of purple porphyry. The walls are frescoed with myth, gods reclining among garlands and laurels. Slaves move silently, pouring wine through strainers into polished silver cup. Their anklets, a quiet chime. Dancers rehearse softly behind a silk screen, and in the center of it all, the table, long, inlaid with ivory, lined with couches, not chairs. Here, the guests will recline. Roasted peacock breasts shimmering with a glaze of wine and dates. Figs split open, drizzled with fish sauce. A stew of snails and saffron, already tasted. The man who tasted it sits just beyond the archway. Not a guest, but something between all three, and this is his table. Imagine now his role. He arrives before the banquet. He does not speak unless spoken to. He does not choose what to taste. He is told. He stands straight, calm, his hands clean, his face unreadable. Every dish prepared for the emperor or high-ranking guest must first pass his lips, not to admire its flavor. You see, in Rome, poison was not the stuff of fantasy. It was a real and lingering threat, a silent weapon chosen by wives, rivals, envious generals, and ambitious senators. It needed no army, no witnesses, only a well-timed servant, or a single contaminated fig, a slice of meat. He swallows. He waits. Then the dish is passed forward. Still dangerous, perhaps, but now accepted. And what if he dies? Then the emperor is saved, and another taster is chosen to dine like royalty, but never for pleasure, to sample the best foods in the world. His training is not culinary. He knows the early symptoms of hemlock and belladonna. He watches for the sweating brow, the tight throat, the bitter metallic aftertaste. He learns the taste. Not every poison acts fast. Some take hours. Some only reveal themselves the next day. So he must keep records, identify trends, report discreetly. Some praegestators were enslaved men, others were freemen, but the rarest were those who worked directly for the imperial family. Their names unrecorded, their lives short, and yet they moved through the highest halls. They watched emperors laugh, whisper. They stood in shadows during plots and marriages, births and executions. They ate when others starved, and starved when others feasted. Imagine one now, an older man, his beard trimmed short. He lifts a silver spoon to his lips, sips, pauses, no reaction. He nods, gently, a signal. The emperor reaches for the same dish. No one applauds, no one speaks of it. But the meal continues. The empire continues. He rises and steps back. He knows the risk. He knows he has done this 100 times, and may do it only once more. And yet, he returns again tomorrow. He dines again tomorrow, as sweet pastries and honeyed almonds pass across polished trays. There is something elegant in his anonymity, something noble in his strange duty, not heroic in the stories of battles, but in the quiet between them, but in stomach. So now, as the meal winds down, let us leave this man in peace. Let us thank him silently and step outside. For one final Roman job awaits us, but theatrical and entirely legal. A man paid not to fight, but to weep. Let us walk slowly now, past marble tombs and burning incense, into the soft, orchestrated sorrow of a professional mourner. So now, the journey has come full circle, from the dry sands of Egypt and into the layered stone arteries of Rome. We have walked side by side with the forgotten. We have listened not to the generals or philosophers. We stood beside professional mourners, their voices hired to echo grief. We followed the scent of red ropes. We descended into the cold, damp silence of Roman sewers, and stood still in palaces where one bite could mean death, stood on the shoulders of workers whose names we'll never know. And all along the way, one truth has whispered beneath the surface, but watchers, collectors, cleaners, tasters, walkers, bearers of silence, strange jobs, yes, but no less real. They remind us every civilization is a collaboration between the visible and the hidden, and sometimes the oddest roles are the most enduring. Now, as you rest, let that thought ease into the quiet corners of your mind, that for all the modernity we hold today, much remains unchanged. Still unseen tasks, still people who rise each morning, not for fame or glory, but simply to keep the world gently moving. The light outside your window may be softer now, the sounds around you fewer, The ancient world has folded itself away like a scroll returned to the shelf. And you may drift now. Let your breath slow. Let the rhythms of these distant lives rock you like water in a clay jar. There is no more to do, no more to see. The sands of the Nile, the streets of Athens, the cellars of Rome, they remain, but far behind. You are here, at peace, and the past is sleeping too. Good night.